Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus, Arcadia Economics, here with you again on today is Tuesday, June 6th. Trust you're all doing well out there. And our video today is about what you can actually do about the silver manipulation. I think that's one of the questions that comes up a lot because similar to the way many people feel about government or that when they see certain things happening, yet you sometimes feel you can feel a little powerless of what to actually do. And fortunately, there are a couple things that you can do to handle this situation better or not. In the end, I think we are facing what's going to be a wild period of change in many ways. And again, here just, and I almost didn't know whether to say what you can do about the silver manipulation, or I thought what better than to just share what I've done, which again isn't necessarily what you should do, but hopefully gives you some ideas that help you find what's best for you. So, first of all, more than anything, and again, as an ex options trader who used to go to the New York Stock Exchange every day and just hang out with a bunch of other middle-aged, depressed, angry trader guys and brokers. Um, it's interesting having left over 5 years ago and done a lot of things in life that I never would have imagined would have been where I ended up. Um, but especially, not that everybody might want to meditate, but just taking a deep breath sometimes and clearing your mind and putting things in perspective has been a big step for me. Sure, depending on what may or may not happen in the silver or any financial market, and to the degree that money may affect the things that we do or might want to do or feel that we have the ability to do, sure, we can see these things as frustrating. And yeah, there are times where I feel that way as well. Yet, I find the better I do at taking a step back, and every once in a while my dog will come by and I'll pet him, and he's a cute little dog named Nibbles. And even now, just saying it, I noticed it makes me smile, and it's somewhere in that being able to take your mind away from things. I mean, not just trading. You hear that. I mean, just listen to the athletes; they're always talking about it. Anyone who's really successful in what they do, I find, usually talks a lot about how they handle things mentally, their ability to get back up when things haven't gone their way. Which, who knows? Maybe there's just a chance that our actual purpose here is to experience these different emotions and learn and grow from them. Again, when I was working on Wall Street, I was earning a lot more than I am now. Although I remember growing up in New Jersey and then later on in New York, and especially once I was working in finance, always seeing people that had tons of money and seemed like they would have the dream life, yet you could feel their unhappiness in life. So I think there's something more, which was a large part of my decision to leave when I did. And I think finding the joy and the value in the things that are what we would actually use the money for if an investment works out, or if we acquire or earn a large sum of money. So I've done a pretty good job of meditating every morning for a couple of years now. And you can feel the differences, and I guess that maybe that's just part of it, is being able to breathe and accept what's happening. I mean, we always make better decisions when we're calm. I mean, you don't find, it's like a lot of the time when people get into fights or do other things that, it's especially I find with I've made this habit of not responding to emails instantly when I receive them. Just think about that. If someone writes something that you didn't like, or it's an outcome you weren't hoping for, just imagine if any situation you were in, you could stop and pause it, almost like you see in the Matrix, where things slow down. You often hear especially in the NFL, when the rookies, they come out of college, and in that first year, they say it takes almost a year sometimes for the game to slow down. So it's where you're not feeling that sense of feeling overwhelmed. And so anyway, that's my tip on one thing that I try and do, because again, if we're in a good mental frame of mind, certainly when you're making investment decisions, bueno. So whatever it is, whether it's going for a walk, just remember sometimes, it is a manipulated market. It's going to go up, probably going to go down at times. We wouldn't ideally like it to, but whatever you can find that helps you to be able to still not have that change how you feel about your day or your family. And if you have anything that's working for you, share it below. I'd love to see what other folks are doing. So number 2 here, now that we got the fuzzy stuff out of the way, is structuring whatever trading or investing you're doing in a way that takes into account things that are going on. Now, certainly I've spent probably an unhealthy amount of time, I'd say in the last 6 years in particular. 2011 was a big wake-up call, or big eye-opener in terms of, again, I was trading equity options on the New York Stock Exchange, and following the housing bubble, it always felt like something didn't quite add up. Fast forward, why I think a lot of people end up believing in the merits of the gold and silver investment is that there's certain things, once you see the debt, you see the money printing, you see what's happened time and time again in history, it leads to certain conclusions that, can be pretty simple when you can see more of the picture. So, yeah, with all that time that I've studied and researched and read just about anything that I could find about silver and why the price seemed to react so bizarrely, in the end, similar to the characters in Big Short, there's a difference between knowing something must, by natural law, revert to something else at a certain, but there's a difference between knowing it'll happen and knowing when. And there's that classic saying that the bubble can stay inflated longer than you can stay solvent. I think I butchered that slightly, but you get the point. And certainly that's, one of the reasons why if people use margin, or they're borrowing money, or even if it's just trading outside of whatever is right for you, not up to me to tell anyone what to do or how to trade, but just do what feels right, and recognize that part of the reason that there is what I believe is an incredible opportunity at this point in time, there's also, if that's correct, there's going to be a lot of volatility. So I've always loved when you hear guys like James Turk, or a lot of the other voices in the gold and silver community. I mentioned Turk in particular because he has Gold Money, which interesting gold saving program. But he often talks about just whether it's $50 at the end of each month, and you go out and you buy a couple silver coins, or actually, I think the next time I buy silver, I'm going to get the old dimes and quarters, because I think if we really do see a rapid collapse of the dollar, or whenever it does happen, just in terms of, if you want some eggs, you don't want to take your 10-ounce bar in there. So anyway, but just if you get in that habit of think of it as a savings plan, but rather than saving in dollars, whether you're saving in gold or silver or Bitcoin or whatever, it could be any type of investment that makes sense to you. Um, but just getting in that habit, and I do find that works very well for the precious metals. But rather than being dependent on the timing or being facing the possibility that you can be forced out of a trade that you're eventually going to be correct on, but we don't know the timing, or at least I don't know the timing. Or if I do, I'll tell you. I tend to think it's coming sooner than later that we'll see significantly higher prices in silver. I think that whenever it does happen, we will be stunned by what does happen. Yet, well, it's kind of like all of the warning signs are going off. The alarm bells are ringing. You see the smoke coming out. Yet, due to reasons we've talked about before, mainly what I believe is a manipulation of both the gold and silver market, amongst many others, but you're not seeing the price rise. So I think that whenever we do see the price rise, it could go quite quickly. I would, in my opinion, well north of $50, and which is exciting to think about. And let me put it this way: if there's someone who can make a better argument of how that could not eventually happen, and I don't want to make this sound in an arrogant way, but just I haven't heard it, I can't. It's almost, if the metal isn't there, at some point, markets do what they do, and manipulations run for a while, and are eventually overwhelmed. So whether that happens next week or, but again, the point being, prepare for the possibility. Make sure that you're not mortgaging the house that it's going to happen. I'm getting these great odds, but it has to happen by this date. Now, I say this as someone, I was a former options trader, so I do trade options on miners, which for the last 6 years has not gone well. Now, if you have certain investments and you time it right and you get it right, yes, that's similar to what we saw in the movie The Big Short with the mortgage market in reverse, where they were betting on it going down. But again, you saw the stress and the pressure and the issues they face. So with that said, I think you get the point. Just plan accordingly. If you know it's a rigged game, you don't have to participate. That's why I understand people get frustrated when they see the way the stock market collapses every 5 or 10 years. I don't invest in the stock market. It's been probably 6 or 7 years since, outside of miners, I mean, that I've owned any sort of typical index fund. So, this idea that we must invest savings in 401k with Fidelity or Vanguard. No, you don't. You go buy a house, start a business, or invest it with somebody else who has a great idea and needs capital. So whatever it is, make sure that you're structuring things that time is on your side. And last one here, some exciting developments, which I'm actually going to get into in tomorrow's video. But there was a trader that has admitted and signed a deal with the CFTC that his participation in manipulating the silver markets, I believe the man's name is David Liu, former Deutsche Bank trader. And it's interesting to see that the CFTC, who has some new commissioners, seems like there's a chance that maybe they might do what a commissioner is supposed to do and actually investigate. If many of you are familiar with the CFTC, it's kind of like the SEC of some of the commodities, is a simple way of thinking of it. And let's just say that there were several investigations that didn't really, they kind of felt like the Warren Commission. So there was a new commissioner, director, sorry, I don't recall his exact title, but James McDonald, who basically had an admission from David, and some of the things that he was doing. And from the way it read to me, sure sounds like he's planning, part of his deal is to continue to cooperate. And also it talks a lot about other banks that were coordinating the activities, which, again, I'm just a guy who used to work on a trading floor, not a lawyer, but I would think that would be collusion. And again, stay tuned for tomorrow's video because I'm going to get into some of the comments that are actually on these transcripts are just they're I mean, we're not talking about any gray area. These are things that I remember would not, if they had even crossed my mind, the last thing I would have done is type it on one of those chats. But anyway, so it seems as if there's some good news coming. What that will actually mean in price, I don't know. But the point of number 3 here, I'm getting better at getting to my points quickly. So thanks for hanging in there. Is that actually I've recently joined a class action lawsuit with a legal firm called Leon K. Solicitors, which is out of London. And by no means is this I believe if you're interested in joining that it's still possible, although by no means is this encouragement or advertisement to join. All I'm pointing out is that there was one suit against Deutsche Bank where they paid out, I believe it was $100 million. That was either $100 million for gold or $38 million for silver or some split. But basically, they agreed last year to pay out large sum of money to again, I don't know exactly what kind of suit you would call it, but and part of that deal was that they released a lot of these transcripts that are coming out. So now there's more, again, it's not just as, I heard one fella say, not just conspiracy theory, it's conspiracy fact now. Now you have an admission of guilt from one of the traders that, again, I'd encourage you to go up to the CFTC's website. You can read the announcement directly. It sure sounds like not only is he going to continue to explain what's going on, but that there's also him going on record, and I don't think it's any mystery. I mean, when you see these transcripts, there's no mystery that this is involving multiple banks. So the idea that there is some legal action, I thought it was encouraging that, I mean, it's one thing if the bank says they admit this or don't admit it, but that there's a precedent that money has been paid out. Certainly you have, at least at the moment, banks with pretty big pockets where I heard someone talking about this last week where maybe they just view the fines, all right, 5-10 billion fines for what's going on in the mortgage market as a cost of business, almost like advertising. Hey, if you make 20 or 30 billion, you pay and the cost is 5 billion in fines. Yes, I do believe that's unfortunately the thinking in a lot of these markets. But anyway, if you have invested, you feel that you've lost to what I would call manipulation, just interesting that there's this one that I've joined. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of other folks who are just finding out about what's happening and looking to take legal action. So just another opportunity that's available. And again, hopefully this, I see we went a little longer today. So again, thanks for staying in there, and hopefully this at least leaves you feeling a little more empowered that we don't have to sit back and think there's nothing that we can do and the banks are always in control. And I mean, but it doesn't always have to be drastic, but just sometimes I wonder maybe everything I planned for regarding what I think will happen when the dollar collapses will be completely off, yet just spending so much time thinking through different ideas, having conversations with different people, maybe it's that actual process that's the valuable part. So hope this helped. Leave your comments below. Love to hear any feedback you have. And with that said, God bless you all and best of luck.